All right, joining me now, South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott. All right, Senator, welcome back. You heard what your colleague there said, that things got more dangerous under President Trump, who you have endorsed.
Yeah, hogwash. What we need to know without any question is under President Obama, the JCPOA, or the nuclear deal, went into place with Iran. It was a disaster. What did we see within the JCPOA? We saw, without question, testing of mid-range missiles. What we need to know that was under President Trump, we were just better off. World peace, think about this. Before President Trump, incursion in Ukraine. After President Trump, a war in Ukraine. The one thing that is completely clear is when President Trump was in office, world peace was not only an objective, but we were experiencing it. Under President Biden, botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, war in Ukraine, we have conflict in the Middle East, instability in the Indo-Pacific, and our southern border might be, in my opinion, the greatest national security risk we have today. We've lost 70,000 lives because of fentanyl coming through our ports of entry and across our southern border. President Biden refuses to close our southern border, and it is the #1 issue, according to the American people. That's why he's underwater, according to all the polls against President Trump. It's just called common sense. Let's secure our southern border.
Well, Senator, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that because you and your fellow South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham were just down there at the border. You were talking about President Biden, what he needs to do. But Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says this. He said it's, quote, nice that you took a field trip, but adds this: actions speak louder than words. Senators Graham and Scott voted to keep the status quo and against the necessary resources to secure the border. If the issue is so urgent, why vote against a package that arguably did something about the flow of people coming illegally across the border?
Well, let me just say this to every single person watching this show. I hope that the United States Senate and, frankly, Congress will have a field hearing in Eagle Pass, Texas, at the southern border, and you will understand why I voted against the border deal that lacked two really important points. The one thing that I heard from the Border Patrol agents themselves was this: if you had a physical impediment, a border wall, it would drop the crossing significantly. And number two, if it had the Remain in Mexico policy, within 2 weeks, some of the Border Patrol leaders said we could see a 90% drop in just 2 weeks in the Eagle Pass area of our southern border. Without doing those two things and allowing, according to the bill, allowing up to 2 million illegal immigrants in the next 12 months or so, that's not a bill anyone should sign, and it's certainly not a bill that I can support. 5,000 a day, Shannon, is what they allow in that bill. 5,000 a day, Senator, and it codifies catch and release.
To be clear, though, it would be, once they hit that rolling average of 5,000 a day, they say, the proponents of the bill, that it would shut the border completely, not continue to allow 5,000 a day, but that would be the marker for stopping it. It's a no for you for now, clearly. I want to talk about your support for President Trump, though, because a lot of speculation. You may be on the short list for VP, that you potentially being vetted for that. So let's talk about some of his policies. We're heading into the South Carolina primary, critical to your home state. Former Governor Nikki Haley, who appointed you to the Senate, running far behind President Trump, but taking a lot of shots at him. She says she's very concerned about where he is on foreign policy, these comments about NATO and letting people within NATO be attacked if they haven't paid their dues. And she says she's very concerned about the relationship between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. Here's her take.
He's going to side with a thug who kills his political opponents. He's going to side with a dictator who arrests our American journalists and holds them hostage. He's going to side with a dictator who has not hidden his hatred for America.
Why would President Trump even give the appearance that he would support any of those things?
It's ridiculous. I'm not sure what Nikki's doing right now. I think she's desperate without question. She's going to lose her home state in double digits. There's not a state coming up that she can win. Even in New Hampshire, she lost women voters to Donald Trump. She lost millennials to Donald Trump. She lost seniors to Donald Trump. Here's what I can tell you about Donald Trump and foreign policy. Without any question, the resources necessary to protect this world, according to the NATO alliance, those resources went up under Donald Trump because of his language. Number two, we had a safer world. Putin stayed out of Ukraine. Hamas stayed out of Israel. In the Pacific, China was not targeting Taiwan. Our southern border, we had, on average, is last year in office, about 1,000 folks crossing our border illegally. Today, the average is closer to 6,000. The one thing we know for sure, with President Donald Trump as our president, we are certainly better off. And that's not even talking about the economy, which is the number 2 issue. Low unemployment, low inflation. We're talking demographically for Hispanics, for African Americans, for Asians, for women a 70-year low. When you look at law and order, there wasn't the challenges that we're seeing in the poorest communities around the country. We had the kind of law and order where people could walk the streets in their neighborhoods. All that can be back with 4 more years of Donald Trump.
Before you go, though, there's a lot of tension, obviously, between President Trump and Governor Haley. That makes sense as they're headed to the showdown in South Carolina. But he says things like she may not be eligible to run, suggesting she wasn't born in the U.S., which she was. He calls her bird brain. He made comments about her husband being on military deployment as if he was trying to get away from her. Wall Street Journal says this: he seems to have forgotten, if he ever cared, that he will need some of her admirers to vote for him in November, talking about centrist Republicans, independents, even Democrats who voted for her. Is President Trump writing them off? Where does he think her supporters will go if he continues to attack her like that?
Well, there's no doubt that the race has gotten kind of challenging without any question. Listen, the rhetoric coming out of the Haley camp, talking about people's age. We see the Haley camp in the family referring to me as Judas Iscariot. We're hearing a lot of chatter out of the Haley camp, not only just matching the rhetoric from the Trump side, but actually going further. Why? Because they're desperate. Here's what I can guarantee you in just 6 days. President Trump will win my home state of South Carolina. We will see a total sweep in this state. We'll go to Super Tuesday, and he'll run the tape there as well. Then we'll turn our attention to where it should be now, on Joe Biden. Joe Biden is underwater in all the battleground states, which means if the momentum continues, we'll have 4 more years of Donald Trump. And that means we'll have law and order, not chaos in the streets. We'll have the strongest economy with low inflation. We haven't seen that in nearly 4 years. And we'll have a completely secured southern border. We will unite around Donald Trump as Republicans, and independents will do the same thing. It's already being reinforced when I go to church, when I go to the gym, and in the polls across the country. We want 4 more years of stability, 4 more years of security, and 4 more years of world peace. Donald Trump.
It'll be ultimately up to the voters to see where they go, but we will be watching in South Carolina and well beyond. Senator Scott, thank you for your time.